If it's so good, it's bad. If it's so bad, it's good. Catch the contrarian investing style of my guest today. While he prefers contrarian investing, in his career, he's a conventional man. He prefers the alphabet I, IIT, IIM, ICICI. A bridge playing master, he loves playing the odds. Let's catch the CIO of ICICI Prudential, S Naren.
In a challenging professional like money management, to stand out, you need to be able to bring to the table some unique skill sets. When I try to apply that framework to Naren, I see three different aspects which I think are unique to the man. The first is the best part of 40 years of experience of Indian equity markets. Second is deep knowledge of credit markets and how the credit cycle interplays with the equity market. And third is enormous depth of reading of material across the world. Three different facets, unique characteristics which I think make Naren the fund manager that he is today.
Naren, thank you so much for joining me on Wizards.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great. Naren, aviation, medicine, stock picking, disparate disciplines, but something ties them together, doesn't it?
If you look at it, in aviation it's completely prevented accidents. In medicine it has reduced the number of
fatalities.
And that the same thing holds good for investing, because in investing also, if you reduce the number of mistakes, you can make a lot of money.
How did you come up with this checklist theory of yours?
Actually, as part of our work, we try to read books, and there was a very nice book written by a person called Dr. Atul Gawande.
Of course.
Called the Checklist Manifesto. It was a fascinating book because it was written by a doctor and there was a lot of reference to investing. That got me interested.
Atul writes that, okay, you clean your hands, for example, you have better outcomes in surgery, or you use quinine and you can cure malaria, for example. Markets are more nebulous, aren't they?
Markets are nebulous in the short run, and there is clearly emotions which play a role. But, there's a history to markets. You will see that there have been crises, there have been euphorias, there have been bubbles. So what happens if you look at, the 11 years that I spent in ICICI Mutual Fund, we have seen all kinds of markets. You get a good grip if you use checklist on where you are in the cycle. For example, when you are in euphoria, when you are in fear, that at points of time you are in bubble.
What's the checklist for putting money into equities?
In equities, if you ask me, there are three things which matter, whether there's fear, how's the valuation, and third is what is the flows. So for example, whenever FIs sell, you have to put money in equities.
Because fear is rising?
Yeah, fear is rising. In fact, we looked at the last 20 years and found that whenever FIs have sold aggressively, like 1998, 2002, 2008, 2011, and recently in August, September 2015, those fire opportunities to invest. But if you didn't have a checklist, you'd be wondering what would happen tomorrow, because every day you're worried what's happening in China, what's happening in emerging markets. But actually a checklist gives us the confidence to say this is time to put money today.
If checklist was all there was to your investment process, a database specialist would be a great stock picker. But clearly that's not true.
That's why even if you make use of checklist, doesn't ensure complete elimination of mistakes. This is not like in the airline industry, whereas you can't have any accidents. Here you do make mistakes because markets behave differently, people in the markets behave differently. So it only reduces the number of mistakes. But once you reduce the number of mistakes, you are on a good wicket in the market over a long period of time.
You actually met Atul Gawande, right? What did he explain to you about the checklist process?
So he actually, is a medical doctor,
yes,
and it was a medical doctor. He was telling us how beautifully using checklist reduce the number of mistakes in the operation theatre. And he found a lot of people like Monish Pabrai and others who used this checklist, what he wrote about medicine, into investing. And then he finally wrote the book.
Give me an example in life where in your career a checklist has actually helped you.
Clearly, if you ask me, you can see a bubble. For example, if you look at a situation of fear, take metals for example in August, September in 2015.
Right.
If you look at it at that point of time, the key characteristic is fear. You have a company called Glencore, which is listed in London.
Down 90%.
Down 90%.
Right.
And then you go and look at the company. It's led by smart people.
Has cash.
Has cash. It has been not the worst company in the world. So you look at that day, you can clearly see that is it was what I call almost like a lemon moment in metals. So on that day, for you to gather the guts to look at metals as a sector and tell the external world that metals looks like a good pick was such a difficult thing, and I couldn't believe in the 15 days which followed that day, certain metal stocks in India gave 40% return.
And Glencore itself was up 30-40%. But lots of periods in the last 10 years. India is a very volatile market where you had fear and greed in equal measure. August 2013, the new Modi bull market, the Modi's elections. Has the checklist helped you through all these situations?
Clearly, we started learning about it only after the 2008 crash. So until August 2013, as a house, we were telling people to invest in our US blue chip fund, because the checklist told us that till the current account deficit came down, the US market would be more interesting to Indian investors because of the situation that dollar could keep appreciating against rupee. But once the current account deficit came down in August, September 2013, we actually stopped marketing our US fund, and we actually got the opportunity to look at investing into domestic closed-ended funds, and we launched some of them.
How does Naren, a mechanical engineer, become interested in the stock market?
Actually, there's a long history to it. My mother passed away when I was 14, and I didn't have any brothers and sisters. My father used to have the habit of investing in public issues in 70s and 80s, and that made him pretty interested, and therefore he educated me right at the beginning, which I'm talking about in 80s in Chennai.
In the backwaters of Chennai. On the merits of equity investing. It's a fascinating story, but in television also we have a checklist. We have to go periodically to break. We'll take one, come back and chat some more with S Naren of ICICI Prudential.